Thank you so much. I don't think I've ever gotten a standing ovation before I've talked. You guys are warmed up, you're ready to go. We're gonna talk a little bit about football, we're gonna talk about family, and we're also gonna talk about faith. But it's so exciting for me to see you here for a godly purpose at such an ungodly hour, okay? And I think it speaks to what's happening in Tampa Bay, not just with the Buccaneers, but with the people who serve, the military, the families, all the things you've got going on. It is so exciting to see that when good things happen, when there's good news, it's contagious. And right now, our country needs that more than ever. And I want to tell you how special it is for you as leaders for 50 years to have come together and to support each other. And great things happen when people gather, when they pray, and when they huddle up. And the huddle is something that's real important to us in football. At the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we are the guardians of the game. We take care of that history. But the huddle is a magical place. You know, when you go, my son played at USC. When we would go to Notre Dame, we would travel with 15,000 Trojans. And we weren't as loud as the Irish, but we were almost as loud. You know, let me tell you, you get into the NFL, he played with the Atlanta Falcons for 8 years, and you go to Lambeau Field, and they don't like giving up their season tickets. They waited 20 years for them. So they're screaming, they're yelling, and there's noise out there. And right now in America, there is lots of noise out there. We've just gone through 2 years of a pandemic. People have been afraid, and we've gone through an incredible election where there's division, and there's a lot of noise out there. And for you to come together and huddle up. One of my Hall of Famers, Ron Yeri, said he spent 17 years in the NFL, and he only spoke in that huddle twice. Because he said, when you're in the huddle, as you are now, he said, you listen with your heart, and you hear with your eyes, and you see who's hurting, and you see who's having trouble, and you see who maybe you can trust on this next play. And then you break that huddle with one heartbeat, as I hope you will this morning. And you go out and face adversity together. But you're not going to let that adversity stop you. And to me, that's why I have loved having the greatest job in the world. So thank you for huddling up. There's a lot to learn here just from the game.
The football huddle is a metaphor for our culture, imperfect like all metaphors. In that huddle is a bunch of folks that are black, brown, white, red, yellow, liberal, conservative, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu. We are slim, fat, short, tall, fast, and slow. We are analytical people, and we're impulsive people. We have some of the finest men on earth, and heaven knows we got a few rounders. We have been through the fires of Bear Bryant and Bo Schembechler or some such coach that knows exactly how to extract every ounce of our energy. Americans see all that and they resonate with it. They crave it. They take it and us into their hearts. The men who earn a place in the huddle have experienced the miracle of team. The training camp experience is unbelievable. It is day after day, week after week, 2-a-day, 3-a-day practices in the heat, often in 14 pounds of equipment. Many drop out, numbers thin, and everybody thinks about quitting. Trust me, everybody. For those who do stay, there is the opportunity to participate in the greatest team sport ever devised. It is the only sport in which every player needs every teammate on every play just to survive. We learn ever so slowly that our differences do not matter in the huddle. When we trudge in after each interminable workout, we know that sweat smells about the same on everybody's body. When we get busted in the mouth, that blood that trickles is the same color. Everybody's tired. Everybody's hurt. It is in this process that the miracle occurs. Men who've been raised to hate each other's guts become brothers. I've seen racists reformed. I've seen the most unlikely hugs after victories or losses. I've seen inner city kids invite country boys from the mountains to go home with them for Thanksgiving dinner, and I've seen those invitations accepted and reciprocated, thus changing parents' lives. Our players become brothers for life. It is what America is supposed to be, could be, might be in our best dreams.
What America is supposed to be, could be, and might be in our best dreams. That's what can happen in this huddle. We think it's a magical place of all the leaders like yourself coming together. And at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, our job isn't just to celebrate football. It's to take all those values that made Damani Dawson the great Hall of Fame center for the Pittsburgh Steelers and drive them into that next generation of young men and young women. It's not just about the past, it's really about the future. It's not just about Canton, Ohio, where every football player wants to end his career. It's about taking that message to the world. And it's not just a museum for football that I'd love for you to come visit as my guest, but it's really about this message of excellence, of fighting for excellence that can translate into many, many other things. Our mission at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the great heroes of the game, to preserve its history, promote its values, and celebrate excellence everywhere. But it's not really about the worship of football heroes, and we've got some special ones with you here today. In addition to Brian Ford, who's taking care of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who really got it going, let me introduce to you Hall of Famer Tony Dungy. Tony, you want to stand? Also Hall of Famer Derek Brooks. Derek, you want to stand? I also want to introduce to you two other guys because we're proud to have at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton also the Black College Football Hall of Fame, because these are guys from historical black colleges who have their own stories to tell and so special. And by the way, 31 of my Hall of Famers who have gold jackets are also members of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. But please welcome the first African American to ever be a starting quarterback in the National Football League, James Harris. Shaq. And I also want to recognize Parnell Dickerson, who's one of our Black College Football Hall of Famers as well. Parnell. And I'll tell you, it's great to get to know these guys, not just as heroes, but as people. And you know Tony, and certainly Derek in this area right here, along with Parnell. Man, they're involved in the community. And if my job, though, was just about the worship of football heroes, frankly, it wouldn't be very much fun. Even if it was just about the celebration of football, which is spectacular and really got it going now in the NFL, it wouldn't be that much fun. But getting to know these guys, you see, we as fans, we think they fell out of bed great, that they are the very best to ever play this game because they're bigger, stronger, faster, quicker. And in reality, I got to tell you, not one of them fell out of bed great. Not a single one. They all thought about quitting. They all had things in their life that they had to overcome and adversities that they had to face, just like you and I. I will tell you that there is some things about it that we're going to talk about that makes them very special because they didn't give up and they fought. It ain't easy to make it into the Hall of Fame. You see, it's one of the highest honors in all of sports. We have 49 elite selectors that work all year long to calibrate excellence and to measure greatness. And of those 49, you have to go through it all year long, and then this one big day where we spend 14, 16 hours before the Super Bowl, you got to get 80% of them to agree on something. Now, 80% of anybody, can you imagine if Congress had that bar, and nothing would ever get done, okay? But it's incredible to make it into that. As a result, you've had 330 million young men that have played this game, now women as well. You've only had 5 million in college. You've only had 29,000 who've ever been paid to play it, coach it, or officiate it in the National Football League. And as of today, you only have 354 like Derek and Tony who have a bronze bust in Canton, Ohio, or who have a black jacket like Parnell and James. And there's only 187 living gold jackets that are with us. So it's an incredible experience. And I have the greatest of job because I get to know them, not just as heroes, but as men. And we have great conversations. But I also have a great job because I get to give them, along with the commissioner, the gold jacket. I'll leave here and go to the Thursday night game in Seattle and give Steve Hutchinson, one of our new Hall of Famers, his Hall of Fame Ring of Excellence. They have a bronze bust that they get for 40,000 years. But the other thing I get to do is knock on the door and deliver good news to them. I tell them three things. If they're going to go to Canton, Ohio, welcome to Canton. I thank them for all that they've done for the game and all they're going to do for the game, and I promise them that we're going to guard their legacy forever in Canton. A carrier pigeon could really do my job if he did those three things. But because of that, I've kind of become the new Ed McMahon for the Publishers Clearinghouse in the United States. And when I'm going through airports, people go, come knock on my door, come knock on my door. If I go through Burger King, when I get to the window, the young ladies there going, hey, are you knocking on my door? And I go, no, I'm here for the number 2. But it is good news when this happens. And the way it got started was kind of interesting, and Derek Brooks was a part of this. They used to hear about it on TV. And my first year, we brought everybody to New York where the Super Bowl was, all 18 finalists. And we were going to knock on their door, but we didn't have time, so we called them. And we were going to get them over to Radio City Music Hall, where we announced them to the nation live on TV. And my first one was to Michael Strahan, because he lived in New York. We had to get him across town. My second one was Derek Brooks, because he was my friend. I knew Derek already, respected him already. I just wanted to call him and give him the good news. The third one was Ray Guy, the punter with the Oakland Raiders. He'd been a finalist 29 times and had never been selected. So he almost didn't answer the phone because I'm area code 714 from Orange County instead of 330 from Canton, Ohio. But thank God he did. And with that slow Southern Mississippi drawl, he said, yes, sir. I said, Ray, it is Dave Baker. I'm the new president of the Hall of Fame. And he said, yes, sir. And I said, Ray, it is my great pleasure. And boom, that's as far as I got. And I could hear him fall to the ground. His phone is rattling around on his floor. His wife, I kid you not, is going, honey, baby, are you okay? And I thought I'd killed my first Hall of Famer. And it was 2 minutes. So for those of you in the media business, 2 minutes is a long time when you're trying to get people over to Radio City Music Hall. And then he got up and he said, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not sure I knew until now how much this meant to me. And that's when we knew we had to share this story with fans. When I've had the privilege and I've knocked on Tony's door, and when you look into their eyes, and most of them cry, they're not thinking about how much money they made. I guarantee you, they're thinking about their mom that drove them to practice when they were 10 years old. They're thinking about the dad that wouldn't let them quit, or the coach that inspired them, or the teammates that helped them get there. It's like them wrapping this entire 102-year history of this league around them, from the day that somebody laced up a pigskin to the last Lombardi that they presented here in Tampa Bay. It is a special moment, and this is a little bit of what it's like.
Super Bowl weekend. David Baker, president of the Hall of Fame, roams the halls with a special mission. On this day, he's the bearer of life-changing news.
Welcome to Canton, Ohio.
Thank you, man.
Hey, Randy.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's my privilege to welcome you to Canton, Ohio. I want to thank you for all you've done for the game, for all you're going to do for the game. Okay, Randy, and I want to thank you so much because this is going to be the beginning of your journey, not the end of your football career.
No way. No way.
Hey, buddy.
Yes.
Welcome to Canton, Ohio.
Oh, my God.
You're going to be enshrined as one of the best of all times, okay?
Thank you. That's awesome.
I'm proud of you, bud.
Congratulations. God bless you, bud. Thank you for all you've done for this great game, Kevin. Congratulations, man. Okay, buddy?
So much, Mr. Baker.
God bless you, buddy. God bless you. Oh, man, you're so deserving, okay?
Hutch. Congratulations, buddy. Welcome to Canton, Ohio, brother. Okay? Welcome to Canton. I know it's been a tough wait here, okay? But God bless you. Thank you for all you've done for the game. Thank you for all you're going to do for the game. Thank you for the man you are. You're going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we're going to tell your story for the rest of time, okay?
Why did you get me last? That was a long wait. That was a long day. Thank you very much.
Sorry, man. I was trying to knock on a door back there, but you don't have a door.
Knock it down.
Knock it down. Coach, I want to thank you for all you've done for the game, for all you're going to do for the game. And I want to welcome you to Canton, Ohio, where your bronze, your legacy.
How about that, Bill? Hey, come on in. Oh, gosh. Folks, did you see him hugging his wife, B, his daughter, Megan?
It's my great honor to tell you that you're going to be the 328th Hall of Famer into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And your legacy is going to be in Canton, Ohio forever. Congratulations, Coach. On behalf of everyone who loves football, that provided you don't come out of retirement on August 5th, that you're going to go to Canton as one of the 303 best football players, coaches, and contributors of all time.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for all you've done for the game.
Thank you.
Do you think he really means this? Hey, I hope you don't mind. You had a do not disturb sign on your door.
We didn't want to be disturbed. We want you to disturb us, though.
Welcome to Canton, Ohio.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Come here. God bless you, man.
You are the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time.
I don't know, David. This might be the best class.
I've had the privilege of doing that about 80 times so far, and each one is unique. As you could see, Jerry Kramer waited for 45 years for that knock on the door. Jerry Jones has $8.8 billion, and it couldn't buy that knock on the door. Randy Moss came to the door, as you saw, and he came as a legitimate star, which was all about him. And I believe when he put that gold jacket on, he became about an ambassador of the game, and I saw him transform into somebody who cared about everybody else. Brett Favre was an interesting one. Brett Favre knew I was going to knock on his door. I knew when I got up that morning I'd knock on his door. It took 10 seconds to select Brett Favre. But when I knocked on his door and told him at that point that he was one of the 302 best players, coaches, and contributors in the history of the game, I don't know if you saw, but he put his hands in his pocket like a little kid, and he kind of hung his head a little bit in humility, because I'm sure he knew at that moment, I could see it, that he knew the shoulders he stood upon that came before him. And afterwards, we take them over to, as you could see here, to the honor show, and we reveal them to the nation live in the middle of the show. And all of our gold jackets that are in the audience, they come up and they shake their hand and welcome them into this club. And afterwards, there's a press conference, and kind of like this, and I administer the press conference. And just before we start, I turned to Bart, who's next to me, and I said, you okay? And he goes, whoa, I just shook Roger Staubach's hand. And I thought they would have known each other or played golf or met along the way. And he said, no, you don't understand. All my life I dreamed of being Roger Staubach. And he paused for a second. He goes, hey, I guess I'm on his team now, right? And I said, forever. You're on his team forever. It means a lot to these guys. It means a lot to these fans. But here's something we found that's common to all of them, the greatness. It really comes down to three pretty simple things, which is, what do you believe? who do you believe in, and how much do you believe it? Because it's going to get tested along the way. We've seen that each one of these guys have an incredible level of commitment. Once you get them, they care. They care about their team, they care about their purpose, and they care. There's an old saying in football and coaching, as Coach knows, that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you got to get them to buy in so that when Tony Dungy comes here to Tampa Bay, you have 18 consecutive losing seasons. Until midway through that season, he got guys to buy in, and the next year, you're in the playoffs. It's all starts with caring, about compassion, about competition at a very high level, and it becomes about community. To me, this is a great saying from the battle itself. My son was a left tackle in the NFL. It's a hard position. You don't want your name said during the game, but let me tell you, you can give up 3 sacks in the NFL, and by the way, still have a pretty good game. Competition is that tough. But Teddy Roosevelt once said at the Sorbonne, he said, it's not really about the critic who counts or how the strong man stumbled or could have done it better. He goes all the way through it and he says, the credit really belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. And if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. So he'll never be with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. It was a great game on Sunday night in New England, huh? But those guys were in the arena. They were battling. They didn't know whether they were going to win or lose, but they knew they were going to give it all. And I'll tell you, that is something that these guys have. They are committed and they are fully committed. And they don't give up no matter how much criticism, no matter how much they're. It's also integrity. Now that may seem a strange thing for you to think about in football, but there comes a time in your training where you can kind of check the box and give the impression that you were doing it, or do it because other people are depending upon you. And you're going to do it the best you can, not just for yourself, but for them. And it creates a responsibility, and that responsibility creates trust. And I'll tell you, trust is the ingredient for a Super Bowl. My son, again, he was a left tackle, and sometimes I tell stories through his eyes because my heart has been on the field with him. But, he has to trust the left guard because there's twists and stunts. He has to trust the fullback who may pick up the blitzer. He has to trust the tight end next to him. He has to trust that the wide receiver is going to trust the quarterback, and they're going to read the coverage the same way because you've got 3, 4, 5 seconds, that you are battling in front of millions of people. And if he can save a millisecond because of that trust, and the left guard can save a millisecond, the fullback and the tight end and the wide receiver and the quarterback, all those milliseconds add up, and catalytically, you see that touchdown. Or if you're on defense, you see that turnover. But it starts with integrity. And great things can happen with integrity, with one person stepping out. Green Bay, I was there in the early days. You were too, I'm sure, Coach Shaq Parnell. Lambeau Field, the biggest thing there other than the stadium was the Kmart. It was cold up there. A guy named Vince Lombardi comes to town, wins 5 national titles for the Packers, and all of a sudden, Green Bay, Wisconsin is Title Town, USA. In Pittsburgh, when Coach Dungy was there, Pittsburgh had lost steel. There was no more steel in the town where the Steelers played. It had left town. And a guy named Mean Joe Green, who doesn't know any difference, gets drafted. And his excellence in the locker room flows over to the practice field, flows over to the stadium. And from the stadium, they get this thing going where they win 3 Super Bowl titles, and it kind of restructures the whole town. Now Pittsburgh is a beautiful city of art and commerce, not just steel. In San Francisco, they were so divided, that the mayor and one of the commissioners had been assassinated, and a guy named Eddie DeBartolo, who's also here from Tampa Bay, he buys the 49ers, and all of a sudden they win 5 Super Bowls, and everybody's dancing in the street, and they're brothers and sisters again. In Dallas, they're having a real estate recession. Jerry Jones comes along, buys the Cowboys, fires Tom Landry. But all of a sudden they win 3 Super Bowls and real estate and everything else is going through the roof. And we're watching Dallas on TV as this big rich guys of everything's going on there. In New Orleans, great example. Half the city leaves and never comes back after Katrina. But a guy named Steve Gleason comes along on Monday night, blocks a punt. They go all the way to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden, the music is back in New Orleans. And then, of course, we know about New England and the Patriots with 6 Super Bowls in the 2010s. And you can see I left the 20s off there because that's Tampa Bay, okay? And the world champion Buccaneers. But when they're doing, everybody in the huddle feels good. And we've seen and we've researched it, there's absolutely economic development that happens and is stimulated because of that. The third one is courage, or encouragement, to give the ability to encourage others, to persevere, because you always feel like growing up, but I'll tell you, it leads to a unique one, which is hope. You know, that there's always a Hail Mary from Roger Staubach to Drew Pearson, that something can happen in the end. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is regarded as the most inspiring place on earth because I'll tell you, when I went there, I had no idea that so many people would come who were terminally ill. We've had people on oxygen with 1 week to live, and what they want to do is go through the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it amazes me. And the reason is because they've had such a great time with their family watching these things. It reminds them of their memories. It reminds them that there is hope and maybe a miracle can happen. But hope is a powerful tool, not just for football players. General Douglas MacArthur, when he was the superintendent at West Point, he had installed for all of our military officers, for all of our first responders out there, he had installed a plaque on the playing fields. He said, "Upon the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on different days, on different fields, shall bear the fruit of victory." And I can recount all day to you stories of Medal of Honor recipients who were high school football players, or first responders who were high school football players. And I really believe the game, respectfully, is not for the guys with the gold jackets or the guys with the black jackets or those who get paid for it. I believe that the game is for them. The things that made you great as a football player can also make you a great police officer or soldier or fire safety officer or teacher or preacher. It can also make us a great community, and it can also make us a great country. I was in New York on 9/11. I had an apartment on the 34th floor, and I remember how our great country was paralyzed and how that incredible city was so stunned. We had been sucker punched. And the commissioner and then Roger Goodell, who was number 2, were good friends, and they made the right decision to not play the following Sunday because there were more important things than football. But to me, the following Sunday was the greatest day in the history of the game. There in Kansas City, the New York Giants were coming onto the field to 70,000 Chief fans who all had American flags. And maybe you remember watching that on TV, or John Bon Jovi doing the national anthem that was sung so well today from the firehouse there at the World Trade Center. And we all kind of figuratively kind of held hands. We got our bearing and we got to our feet again. And the message was, hey, you might sucker punch us once, but we're going to come together. We're going to huddle up. We're going to get united. And 10 years later, we had a Super Bowl in that same city that they attacked as a message to the world that you can't knock us out. The fourth thing is respect. This has been a wonderful game of inclusion. When you're in the huddle, it doesn't matter what color you are, how much money your parents have. It's just that we're on the team together. And that breeds an incredible amount of love. The great teams, I tell you, I've seen it because I've seen my guys who are Hall of Famers come back and they love being in the locker room all over again. They have a love for each other. The way that worked in my life, that gentleman on the left is my dad. He worked in a lumber yard his whole life, but neither my mom or dad could read or write. When I was in college, I brought home a teammate who was African American, and we were going to get some food on the way to someplace else. And I'm disappointed to tell you, but my dad wouldn't let him in the house. And please understand, my dad was not a bad man. He worked hard, he loved well, but he grew up in Mississippi at a different time and a different place. And you didn't go into each other's house. That picture in the middle is my son who played with the Falcons, and that's his wife, a beautiful young African-American lady. And that guy on the right, that's Gunner. He's my grandson, interracial. And I'll tell you, if my dad had the opportunity to know Gunner, he would flip for him. But what changed between my dad's generation and my son's generation was this game. My son was the tackle in the Reggie Bush push game at Notre Dame that they won by 1 yard. He was also the tackle in the national championship the next year when they went for it for 4th and 2 over his side, and they came up 1 yard short with 1:22. I will tell you, to him, if you can help him get a yard, it doesn't matter what color you are. It just matters, are we connected in heart to heart? Are we teammates together? And I've seen so much of this through these guys. The truest manifestation, I believe, of Martin Luther King's dream is this game. He said he dreamed of a time when his 4 children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And in our business, character is measured by the yard. It's easy to see how that character works. And that develops the excellence and the honor and the nobility that we see of guys striving to put together day after day, that good practices become good games, and good games become good seasons, and good seasons become the legacy of a good career. The great Hall of Famer, Vince Lombardi, said you can never achieve perfection, but if you relentlessly chase perfection, you might just capture excellence. Because you see, in our business, excellence is not pristine and perfect and flawless. In our business, it's snot coming out of your nose and blood coming out of your mouth and a dirty uniform. You have to fight for excellence. I don't know how many interceptions you gave up, Coach, as a defensive back, but there were a few. And his job was to forget those and get ready for the next play. And each of us have that in our own life as well. But let me kind of take that as the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the highest in sports, and talk to you about God's Hall of Fame. Because I don't think you're going to get a bronze bust. I don't know that you're going to get a gold jacket or a Hall of Fame ring of excellence. But I believe that someone bigger than Dave Baker is knocking on your door. The God of the universe. The Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, he used to watch wrestling matches. He used to watch marathon runners run. And he says, hey, don't you know that they all run in the race and they run to win first prize? He says, run in such a way that you win the prize. Be a competitor in life. God wants you to be a winner in life. But he wants you to compete. He says they compete in the games and exercise self-control in all things. They run in such a way as to win first prize. He says they do it for a perishable wreath, but we do it for an imperishable. What happened in those days was when you won the marathon, you got a wreath. And a month later, those leaves were falling out. We give our guys a beautiful gold jacket made by Hager. And after a while, they need a new gold jacket because they wear it to Starbucks, always gets them at the front of the line. But it is made of imperishable stuff. Even that bronze bust is supposed to last 40,000 years. But 40,000 years is not the eternity that God promises you in his Hall of Fame. And there's a bigger Hall of Fame than the one we have in Canton, Ohio. But God's standard for making his Hall of Fame is even tougher than the one in Canton, Ohio. It's absolute perfection. That perfection that even Vince Lombardi says we can't get. He says, for the wages of sin is death. Just one sin is enough to disqualify you from going into heaven for eternity. But the gift of God through life, through Jesus Christ, is eternity. And I'm not talking about the big sins like murder and adultery. I'm talking about pride and jealousy, gluttony. Every time I go through McDonald's, there's a lot of gluttony involved, okay? But just one sin is enough. Can you imagine if that was our standard at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that, Brett Favre, who I talked about earlier, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, he also threw more interceptions than anybody else in the game. If the standard was that you had to complete every pass, if you had to make every catch, if you had to make every block or make every tackle, not one guy could ever be in the Hall of Fame, and that's God's standard. So what he did was he took care of it by sending his son, a historical person, Jesus Christ, analyzed more by history than Tom Brady. He existed. But there's the faith that God says he sent him as his son to die on the cross, to take our sins upon him and rise from the dead. In John 3:16, that famous verse that's at every sporting event, it said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." It's saying that you have an invitation to God's Hall of Fame by believing that simple thing. And it's your eternal opportunity. Revelations 3:20 has come to mean a lot to me as I've knocked on these 80 doors. Because what it means is that it's not Dave Baker knocking on your door. It's the God of the universe who's knocking on your door right now today. And you have a legacy, just like these heroes of the game have their legacy. And it all comes together in your life. For them, it's somebody saying, thank you for all you've done for the game. It's kind of saying, hey, all those mistakes you made are okay because you're one of the greatest in the game. For you and I, when God knocks upon our door, it's saying, well done, good and faithful servant. It's saying, I paid the price for you. You're forgiven. You have eternity with me. All those good things you've done, I'm grateful for. All those bad things you've done, I've forgiven. Behold, I stand at the door and I knock. And anyone who answers, I will come into them. That Jesus will become a part of your life. I will sup them with them and them with me. And that will lead to an eternity. I also have the job of going to a whole lot of funerals. My hero when I was growing up was Bart Starr. I never thought I'd meet him, much less that I'd give the memorial at his funeral. It's a solemn occasion. I was just at Don Shula's celebration of life. It was something that was really special, of a life well lived. But that's what God wants for you. More than a gold jacket, more than a ring, more than a bronze bust for 40,000 years, for eternity. So here's the challenge for you. Here's the challenge for all the leaders here in Tampa at this prayer breakfast today. How can you be a competitor? How can you get in the game and make a difference? Second of all, if you're going to get in the game, you probably need a coach. And there's a number of us here who can tell you the difference that has been made in our life by choosing Jesus to be our coach. To get a game plan, and the Bible is a great game plan. 66 books by 40 authors, over 1,400 years, that has a common thread of unity through it. It's a wonderful book for how to live our lives, for facing challenges today. To get a trusted team in a fellowship of a church or in a support group with other men through the Christian Businessmen's Committee. And then finally, to know that you're forgiven. When you know that God's got a stamp on you or your coach has confidence in you, man, you can go out there and just fly. And if you make a mistake and it's forgiven, you can forget that one and get ready for the next play, because we're going to get together and we're going to fly again. And I think right now, there's a lot of flying going on in Tampa Bay. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Let me just share with you, if I could, my best lesson that I ever learned in my life. It wasn't in school, and it wasn't in law school, it wasn't even at church, I'm sorry to say. But I was watching a college football game in 1973, and this guy, Joe Paterno, was the coach. And they do this thing at halftime where they interview one coach when he comes on, the other coach when he comes off, right in the middle of their job. They only work like 10 or 12 times a year, and right in the middle of their job, they're gonna interview them. And there's kind of pandemonium, and it's Happy Valley. And a guy who I came to know very well, Mike Adamley at ABC, is interviewing him. I'm sitting at home just watching the TV. I'm a sophomore in college. I've got all these Hostess snowballs kind of stacked up here and some Diet Coke to cancel out the snowballs, and I'm reading this thing we used to call the newspaper and checking the box scores. And Adamley is talking to Coach Paterno, and he says, hey, Coach, it looks like you're about to be 11-0. Maybe you're going to go undefeated. Do you think you ought to be in the championship game? And players are going in front of the camera and behind him and the whole deal. And all of a sudden, Coach Paterno says, well, you know, that's probably for somebody else to decide. That's a horrible answer if you're a TV reporter. And so Adamley's trying to stretch it, and he says, well, Coach, is this the best team you've ever had? And Paterno says, well, I don't know. Adamley kind of goes, well, Coach, what would be the best team you've ever had? And Coach Paterno then says, well, I didn't coach them, but I played on a remarkable team in 1946 at Brown University. Now, I kind of half heard this, and I put my newspaper down because I'd never heard of this team. And Adamley kind of asked my question. He says, who were they? And he said, oh, Mike, we only won 3 games. And now I'm totally glued to the TV set. And Adamley, of course, is thinking the same thing I'm thinking, and millions more watching it on TV. He says, Coach, if these guys are about to be 11-0, and those guys only won 3 games, how could they be as good as the team today? And I'll tell you, they're in the middle of his job in front of tens of thousands of fans at Happy Valley and millions more like me watching it on TV. This guy put it all into perspective, not just for football, but I believe for life. He said, oh, Mike, I don't know if you know it, but on that team I played for him from 1946, I lost a teammate in Vietnam. I lost another teammate in Korea. I've got 2 congressmen. I've got 1 United States senator. I've got this many lawyers, this many doctors, this many teachers. And he went through as if he knew where everyone was. And he finished by saying, there's even 6 other teammates like me out there teaching other kids football and life. Not just football, but football and life. And what he said, these guys are a great team on the field today. But he said, you know, those guys from 46, they're changing the world. I'm going to be excited to watching you. I'm coming back on November 22nd when we get to give a ring at Raymond James Stadium to John Lynch. But I'm confident by you coming together, by praying as leaders, by accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, that you can and are changing the world. God bless. Thank you.